Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's edition of Beyond the Ordinary Show. If you see me kind of smiling a little bit, which you might notice, it's just because freaking Nora Herold's on with us tonight. I mean, really, it's just, yes, this is gonna be a phenomenal call. It's the Pleiadians, maybe the fairies. We don't know who's coming, but it's Nora, and so that's in it by itself is just so full on in the most beautiful way. And Nora's going to be talking today about operating from joy, the way forward. And she's going to get into some specifics that are coming up and how to activate the vibrations that we have access to now in our body and so much more. So again, it's going to be a phenomenal conversation. As always, so much fun with Nora. We'll probably open up with Q&A as well. And Nora, you have a how many part special offer? I opened up. It's like really like 1,000-part series. It seems like we'll get into the special offer later, but this is full on Nora, and I'm just thrilled. So happy to be here on this call today. And for anyone new to the show, and there's a lot of you that are writing in that are new, Nora's been channeling and lecturing, doing healing work for over 20 years. And in 1996, she established conscious contact with the Pleiadians and her spirit guides, which triggered an awakening of her abilities and gave her access to her own records. And so now she channels a multitude of high vibrational beings, which you'll receive some of them on the call today. And they include the Pleiadian Collective, Yeshua, Kaliandra, Delirians, Lemurians, and so much more. And so you're in for an absolute treat if you're new to Nora. Even if you're not new to Nora, you're in for a treat. And Nora, with that, welcome back. It's so good to have you back and to feel you on here.
Hello, John. Hello, Beyond the Ordinary. Hello, all of you tuning in, calling in, listening, watching. I'm so happy to be here with you all, John. Thank you, as always, for having me on as a guest.
Of course. One of the first things I want to jump into, and of course, redirect as you want, because I just love the directions that flow between us. But for me, very strongly, as we're opening up and you came on, I asked you specifically if the rooster wants to say.
Yeah, I love it. It's so funny because I said I was going to wear my headset because I knew the dogs here in my house would interrupt. No, don't put your headset on. I love it. I should take mine off. That's so funny.
Oh
okay,
God.
sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's perfect. Where does the rooster want to go, Nora?
Yes, the rooster's opening the energetic portal. Here, I'll use a whole bunch of new age words for our right. We can spin anything with new age dialogue.
We can create magic and create our own realities without any base in sun science because we choose to.
That's right.
Oh yeah, I know where this call's going today. This is gonna be out of control, y'all. This is gonna be great. Well, creating and where we go to into my question. There's new timelines opening.
Yeah.
Talk to me about this. Share with us.
Yeah. See, I can feel the Pleiadians wanting to come in already. So I'm going to let them come in and handle this question. And then I'll come back. So for any of you who haven't heard me channel before, I'm a very conscious channel, meaning I'm present while I'm channeling. So I jump back and forth between Nora voice, Nora translating, where I'll still sound like Nora, and then direct voice channeling. So I'll try to always let you know who it is that has the microphone. But y'all need to know that whatever comes out of my mouth is being guided in some way, even if I'm swearing or acting like a goof, which I will. Okay. Greetings, John. Greetings, Beyond the Ordinary crowd. This is the Pleiadian Collective. It is wonderful to have this opportunity to connect with you in this way. So, timeline jump. Yes, we're getting right to it. So, we're going to talk about the winter solstice, and we're going to talk about the equinox that just occurred a few days ago and help you all better understand the timeline jump and what's happening right now. So on the solstices, you hook up with, receive, access, right? Whatever words work for you. And we like to say, this is the story that we tell, right? There's not any one story that is the ultimate truth. So we are really working with you all on helping you understand this piece, that even us, we are offering you a story. We're offering you something you can interpret perhaps as mythology. And yes, you may feel resonance with it to the point where it feels very real for you. And that's fantastic. And also viewing it as mythology is an extremely, from our perspective, healthy way of viewing it as well, right? Because part of the human experience is surrendering to the great mystery, right? It's part of the game. And it's part of coming in to the illusion of separation and physical bodies and working in physical density, that you can't know everything beyond, right? Because that is part of the game. If you know everything beyond, it takes you out of the game. So that's why we like to say this is the story we tell, or this is our perspective. It is a story, not the ultimate be all and end all of all truths. All right. So from our perspective, on the solstices, so you had a solstice back there on December 20th, 21st, depending on where you were on the planet, you received this big packet of information, and this happens on every solstice. And then you spend the time between the solstice and the equinox. So your equinox just occurred a few days ago, the 20th or the 21st of March, again, depending on where you live on the planet. So between the solstice and the equinox, you kind of unpack it all this information, all this energy, all of the healing, all of the vibrations, and you start to work with it in your body. And typically what happens between the solstice and the equinox is a whole bunch of stuff comes up for you to deal with and process and heal and look at and clear and integrate and better understand. So when you get to the equinox, you can start to actively use in your life all of what you'd been processing for the last few months. And this particular download that came in on the solstice, in large part, was about the power of receiving, and how allowing yourself to truly receive and be a conduit for that unconditionally loving energy that is always available to you enables you then to create in a more effective way as an individual creator within the container of the collective. And this is something else we've really been talking with you all about lately, right? You are these individuals. Yes, you have your own lives, you have your own specific desires and wants and paths, and then you are also a piece of the whole. And one of the things that's happened on planet Earth is the fragmentation of the individual began to get too extreme. And this is an echo of something that occurred long ago during the Galactic Wars. So you're in the process of replaying this intense separation and fragmentation, so much so that some of you got to the point where you said, well, I don't really have to pay attention to what's happening over in that country or even over in that town or that state, because my world is my world and I can make what I want for myself. And that's not really the way you all operate, because you, we, all of us are all connected, and every single action any of you take, any thought you have, any energy we all hold, any emotion we feel, you put that into the giant pot of the collective consciousness, and that affects the collective experience. So for those who got very disassociated and pulled out and fragmented, they are finding themselves right now having to do a lot of healing work, right? Because there was a backlog of stuff. that hadn't been dealt with. And now it's coming up. It has been coming up for the past few months. So this timeline jump that you're navigating your way through right now, it's and you're not yet settled on your new timeline, right? This jump is a biggie, and it's been unfolding over the course of a few weeks here, and it's going to continue for a few more weeks, probably sometime into mid-April or so. So you're all discerning right now what really is for the highest good, not just of the individual, but the collective. And what's happening in Ukraine right now is a focal point when it comes to this timeline jump, because there are a lot of opinions about what should or shouldn't be happening, who should or shouldn't be involved. And one of the reasons why things are playing out in the way they are playing out is because those involved recognize on some level the importance of this moment, the importance of this timeline jump that you're navigating. So that experience itself, what's happening there, may end up being a bit more protracted than you all maybe think it might be right now, right? Because it's one of the things that's both magnifying the fragmentation and the distortion. You have, right, the story of the literal fight between, on your world, democracy and fascism, right? That's what is coming to a head there. And then within yourselves, you're all processing your feelings about this, and you can't be outside of it because it's happening on your world. It's part of your story.
Yeah, it's phenomenal what's coming. It's phenomenal what's coming through as the roosters come back in. And it's fascinating also as you share this and all transparency, Nora. I find it's such a vibrational shift from what we're talking about and into that timeline. And again, not quite knowing yet, that I found myself getting lost as the Pleiadians were coming in, and like grounding myself back in, and really being able to pay attention to a lot of it, but some of it, the disassociation, as the mind had to perhaps release in order to receive. So this is profound.
Yes, this is the Pleiadians. And, you know, when you find that happening, and that's very common, because of course, we're not just talking through Nora, we're also working directly with every single one of you, right? So when you find yourself not being able to track what's coming through, perhaps disassociating, just take a breath and drop into your heart and just let that information, the energy, the love move through you in this way. And then the words and the thoughts and the ideas that are appropriate for you in this moment, they'll be there then as your own thoughts and ideas moving forward.
No, it's so beautiful, because for me, I've been aware of this aspect of receiving that's been opening up. And the receiving for me, I mean, at the end of the day, it's all love, period. And so the receiving of that amplitude of love and acclimating to it in the receiving mode, it's like taking those sips as you keep climbing in altitude and acclimatizing. So I love that you said pause and take a deep breath. And again, this is just so in resonance with what I've been feeling and experiencing on an outside perspective coming in, and to bring in the vibration to open up the container even more there's so much more available.
I love that metaphor. This is Nora here. I love the metaphor you used of acclimating yourself to altitude, right? Where you go up and, right? When I was channeling during the winter solstice session, all this information about receiving, and it's in the package, as is the equinox transmission, right? So
Good,
they
yeah.
really, they really work hand in hand. But it's so funny. Max, who's just a regular supporter of our work and an amazing channel and healer himself, came on just to thank me for my work during the transmission. So while he was speaking, I took the moment to fill my water cup because it was empty. And so I'm listening to him thank me, and I overfilled my water cup. and spilled water all over my desk, fried my mouse in the middle of the program. So you'll hear
Oh
it.
no.
You'll hear it if you get the package. John. So my partner John, and John Burgos, you have met my partner John.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
he's present in a lot of my work and a lot of these transmissions. So he had to take over all the controls. And it was so funny that, I mean, for me, that was my metaphor of not being able to fully receive Max's love and gratitude, right? That I would
Oh
that I would overflow my own cup and fry my mouse.
Oh my God, you're constantly calling yourself out in that way, but it's so beautiful because that's your commitment to growth. That's
Yes.
like, oh, I'm paying attention. It's like, oh, and you're so aware of the nuances of receiving. It's really quite impressive.
Thank you. Yes. And I think it's also fun when you start to, right? Like
Mhm.
I as real as that is for me, and receiving is an issue. It always has been. And but that's an issue for all of us.
Right. Yeah.
So um but to also see the levity in it, right? How hilarious it is that in the middle of a transmission for over 100 people, right, that I would not be able to take that love as I'm teaching about receiving love.
Oh my God. Well, and this brings me into really the topic of today, and I can say we can talk about operating from joy with a lowercase j, and there's like operating from joy with an uppercase j, and it's a vibrational difference of what joy accentuates or embodies. It amplifies is probably the best word for it.
Yes, this is the Pleiadians here. That's so fantastic, John. So the lower J operate from joy. That's kind of the emotional experience of joy that you have, right, on your world. And then the capital J operate from joy. That's the vibration of joy,
Mhm.
the frequency. It's so we like to say that the emotions are the fuel for the third dimensional identity. Emotions are broad and big, and they're not typically at all focused, right? Which is why often you all feel yourself struggling in your creations, because you're running your emotions in big and broad ways. So it's throwing all this data out into the field all around you. And then you have all conflicting experiences, perhaps based on your emotional bodies. And that's the third dimension, right? That is the game of 3D life. But you now have access to your fifth dimensional consciousnesses, all of you, from within your third dimensional bodies. So we use the term fifth dimensional consciousness and higher self interchangeably. We use those terms to mean the same thing. So, for all of you, when you incarnated in this life, you perceived your higher selves, and all the way up through the winter solstice of 2012, you perceived your higher selves, or your fifth dimensional consciousnesses, as a being that existed above you, right? Up on some high dimension far away. And maybe every once in a while you would feel it in your crown or your third eye, right? On the winter solstice of 2012, that all changed. And it became possible for you to begin to source the energy of your higher self, or your fifth dimensional consciousness, from within the totality of your third dimensional chakra system, from the top of your head all the way down to the soles of your feet. And we like to include the soles of your feet in your first chakra, because that really offers a more grounded experience in the body when you're not cutting your energy centers off at the base of the spine, right? So when you say, look at that, my feet are touching the ground, I'm letting my higher self, my fifth dimensional consciousness, literally connect with planet Earth itself. So, along with the integration of the higher self into the third dimensional chakra system, you've begun to open up now to fifth dimensional technology. The fifth dimensional technology, one of them is that operate from joy technology, capital J, where you are now accessing the vibration of joy in your body, which is a laser focused experience of joy. It's not diffused like the emotion of joy, big and broad. It's very specific, very direct. It's very in the body. There's a physical sensation that correlates. Let's have you all run an exercise here. And this is Nora. I'm going to have to just break out for a second here because Teddy has demanded entrance into the program.
Perfect.
He's up on my couch like a like the good gnome that he is. So that's one of my 3 dogs, Teddy, and he's definitely a gnome. The other 2 have their own very specific identities. Teddy's probably the only one that will be joining us. All right, this is the Pleiadians. We're back here. So let's take you through an exercise that helps you access the vibration of joy in your own bodies. And we're going to tell you right now, we like to position for you all the vibration of joy in your second chakras. So we have assigned a specific vibration to every single one of your 7 main chakras. There are 2 assigned to the crown, but we're just going to work with the joy vibration right now. So first, just take a breath here. And as you inhale and exhale gently, first just tune in to yourself and your body. And just let yourself feel anything that's coming up to be felt right now without any judgment whatsoever. Just let yourself have it as you continue to breathe. Just shake your hands out just a little bit. Maybe you want to shake something off there. And now put your attention on your heart. So your heart is the center. It's the foundation for your creations. And just let yourself breathe and really connect with the beauty of your own heart. As you begin to access your higher self or your 5th dimensional consciousness right in your heart chakra. So you're still here. The 3rd dimensional you is here. The ego's here. There's nothing wrong with the ego experience. You are not lesser than your higher self. The word higher can be confusing, right? Because it makes you think that's a better version of you. It's not. It's just a different perspective. That's all. So your 3D you is still here, and you are also your higher self in your heart. So now inhale deeply into your heart chakra and just magnify that light of your higher self with your breath. And as you exhale, exhale right on down into your 2nd chakra. And as you do that, give yourself permission to activate the vibration of joy. And if your mental body wants to start asking how to do it, just give it a cookie, ask it to sit in the corner and quietly observe as you go back to your heart. Inhale in. Magnify the energy of your higher self. Exhale down. Activate the vibration of joy in your 2nd chakra. And you may actually feel a physical response in your body. You may feel a little bit turned on even as you have this experience. That's completely regular. And if you're having difficulty activating the vibration of joy, so it's just like pushing a button, but you're doing it energetically. If you're having a difficult time with it, inhale some golden light into your heart. And as you exhale, just flush your system with golden light. Let that golden light go anywhere it needs to go. Because if you're having difficulty activating joy in the 2nd chakra, it's because something else has come up for you with trauma or something that needs healing. that needs to be tended to right now prior to the joy activation. It's not that the trauma cancels out the joy, but it's just a moment of saying, oh, I've got to tend to myself here. I've got to love myself more right now and heal something and then activate that joy. So this is something you can do. This is just a simple activation you can do in your body at any time. And then our recommendation is follow it up with an action, a simple action that is joyful, that allows you to physically actualize and express that vibration of joy in the field in some way. You could get up and dance, right? You could go out and smell a flower. You could go hug somebody you love. You could be a little more complicated if you want and run your creative energy and create something, right? You can do anything you want. This is then how you start to put more joy into the field of the collective container. And this is how you begin to affect the collective reality in a more direct way. So when you start to feel overwhelmed by something like Putin's invasion of Ukraine, let's say, right? Because that is overwhelming for all of you, for all of your emotional bodies, for your psyches. So if you start to feel overwhelmed by that, first, have your feeling experience, right? Don't try to fake joy. You can't fake it. Faking an experience of joy and then trying to put that fake joy into the field of the collective is not going to get you anything. It's not going to get you what you want, right? So instead, it's, okay, I'm overwhelmed. I'm going to tend to myself. I'm going to give myself what I need. I've centered, whenever that is. Now I'm going to activate that joy, take that joyful action, and put that into the field.
That was so powerful for me, because my experience typically of breathing into my centers, it's more as I exhale as a disbursement out of those centers, opening up my field, opening up my auric field, my magnetic field, and all that. And so to keep it within myself and realizing the creative power that's there with that, that's a whole different level. That's a whole different point of creation from within.
Yeah, I find it to be very empowering. Absolutely. Right. And it doesn't negate that experience of the expansion, because the truth is the fifth dimensional consciousness does extend beyond our physical bodies, right? It's a much greater energetic form than our bodies themselves. So eventually, when you work in this way, you do both. You activate that joy from within, you feel it still in your own body and expanding outwards into your field. And just that, running that is a way to put more joy in the field, meaning the collective field,
Right.
collective humanity's consciousness, right? Which we are here to do. We are here to be in service to the collective, as we are here to have our individual experience. We're here to do both.
Yeah, and something that you talk about, Nora, and I think this is so important to bring the awareness. It's not even perspective, it's awareness, y'all. And I want to be very specific about this. Is the awareness is that we're bringing our human identity as the highest version of our consciousness. And I'd love it if you speak a little bit more into that.
Oh gosh, thank you. That's been a really big one. You know, I'll talk about it personally first, right? Because that's been a long journey for me personally to really integrate that piece, that this me right now in this moment. So this you right now in this moment, all of you, this is the highest version of you that exists, because this is where we are, right? This is it. So for me, initially it was, well, being raised Catholic, right? Initially it was, I'm original sin, I'm human, I'm bad. And I've been fascinated lately by the crossover between deep Christian beliefs or other religious beliefs that have found their way into the New Age belief system and community that we're repackaging as New Age, that's really just outdated Christian, right? Jewish, Muslim, on and on, you name it, thought forms and ideas and programs
Oh, yeah.
that foster separation. So I'm having this, I mean, this is something really over the last 2 years. I think the last 2 years have been so transformative for all of us as we have been forced to spend more time with ourselves at home alone, right? As we're living through this pandemic. And then as we have begun, certainly for me, as I've begun to become more and more conscious in every moment, how my presence, my the space I take up in the world affects every single being around me. Right? My attention was already there, but it has crystallized for me, and I think for so many over the last couple of years. So yeah, my journey initially was like, Nora's kind of like this whatever, struggling, fucked up person, right? And then, oh, Nora's channeling, right? Oh, so I've accessed some higher data. Oh, and then I accessed my higher self. Oh, there's this higher me somewhere out there. Fantastic. So I'm going to get to that higher me at some point, right? Or maybe I'll go live in another star system where those realities are higher or more joyful, right? There are all these options off planet Earth that are higher and better. And then I started my serious integration work, which for me started in 2007. I got a message at the end of 2007 saying, from the Pleiadians specifically, saying, okay, that was fun. Now it's time for you to bring it back home to your body, and your work is going to be really all about integration of the higher self moving forward. And I thought, when I heard that, I thought, ugh, that is so boring. Because in part, I really did not like being on planet Earth, and I still had a lot of self-esteem issues I had not really dealt with and worked through. And not that I'm finished, right? I have really come to understand that healing is a lifelong journey, and I have let go of trying to get to any destination when it comes to anything, and that has been hugely relieving. I cannot even tell you how relieving. Maybe that's partly because, I've just turned 55, so there's some physical maturity that goes along with this as well, where I say, oh yeah, that's really true. The shit I was dealing with when I was 20, oh, here it is again.
Yeah. Mhm.
And so when I started that integration work and started to really bring my energy home to my body, that began to open up this understanding that, oh, this is it right here, right? This is the Pleiadians here. You right now are the highest version of yourself that exists. And as you breathe into that truth deeply and feel your higher self in your body. But this was true even prior to being able to consciously access the energy of your higher self from within. This has always been true. You have always been the highest version of yourself that exists in this moment, this human you. This, as you integrate this, as you embrace this, as you embrace and love your humanness more, you will begin to embrace and love humanity more. And as you do this, the solutions to the problems that you are all feeling besieged by on your world right now will begin to reveal themselves. You will collectively develop the solutions from your love of humanity. Yeah, it's so fascinating to me that my channeling work with, these beings who exist in the 12th dimension, whatever that means. Again, that's a story, right? That's or it's real, or it's whatever, right? That would bring me home to my love of humanity.
Right. And I just wanted to pause to feel into that because it's so beautiful and so powerful. It activates.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it just allows me to be more compassionate, and it also allows me to have healthier boundaries, right? Because when you're acknowledging, or when I'll speak about myself, as I acknowledge that this me is the highest me and that I have that value, right? Then it's easier to employ self care. and operate in a healthier way as a human, and establish boundaries and know what boundaries really serve, it's easier for me to have more compassion and unconditional love for all humanity while at the same time having boundaries.
And for me, what that does, because we fulfill that safety within ourselves, we are able to trust more. And when we're able to trust more, that trust isn't necessarily a projection, it's a way of being. And when we get into that, we're open to receive more than we ever have before.
Yes. Yes, this is the Pleiadians here. And the wonderful thing about being able to source your higher self from within is your higher self doesn't have any of the self-esteem issues that your ego identity has. So if you hit a moment where you feel like, oh, I'm overwhelmed, or I really can't handle this thing, my self-esteem issues are up and I just feel like crap, you can take a breath and surrender right back into the embrace of your higher self in your own body and source that support and unconditional love from within. And it may not immediately shift or change or quote unquote fix, right, the self-esteem issues that has come up for you. It may take you a few hours or days or weeks or months or years, depending on how big the thing is, right? But it will work, right? The
Mm.
more you collaborate with your higher self from within, the more empowered you will operate, the more you will access your own value, the more you will receive, the more you will feel free to give unconditionally as well, because those two things go hand in hand. You cannot unconditionally receive without unconditionally giving. They go hand in hand.
Yeah. Oh, I got the chills when you're saying that. Thank you so much. Again, it's more of an activation and remembering and stepping into the new, again, the new timeline. And we're defining that as this. So this is so timely and so important. Thank you for that. I want to take a few minutes. We want to take Q&A. There's some great questions that are coming in that are really going to lend to us being open here. But we have to get into a special offer, and I want to share why, because this is, I've really felt, and I'm speaking from my personal experience right here, right now, my checking out a little bit during a conversation at first when the Pleiadians were talking, the resonance of the new timeline and what we're expanding into, the process that we've just been taken into with the Pleiadians and Nora, we're sourcing from within again. It's all in such alignment of the unknowingness that I feel ourselves moving into, feel myself moving into.
Right?
So this is profound, but there's an authority and it's beyond faith. There's a knowing, and we're doing, and what we do for ourselves, we're doing collectively as well. This special offer and the vibrational tone of what's included in there, we call them activations, transmissions, meditations, communion, whatever it is, whatever defines it for you. This is amazing. It's really, it's like, I hope that you guys follow along, at least receive what's being spoken about here. But I want to encourage you to go deeper into the special offer. And with that, April, if you don't mind, or if you would, please put the link into the chat box where people can access the page for the special offer so all of y'all can follow along as Nora describes it. And there's a lot on there. I don't think we'll get through each module, but
Oh, no.
we'll get to it. But you're going to get the vibrate. You're going to feel it. Even someone wrote in, every time the Pleiadians come in, I feel a vibrational shift. I had that also. It's like wow. It's like something just happened here. This is really special, y'all.
Yeah, the Pleiadians really bring the love. And, I haven't even gotten to Yeshua and Ursula, the fairy that I work with on a regular these days. So they do that as well. It's just different flavors of love and connection and expansion. So I'm going to just do a brief overview of the package. It's just about everything I've done over the last year, every transmission, every workshop, every healing event, every a piece of magic and spell work. So it's kind of a wonderful combination of all of this. The first piece of the package is my next live transmission, which will be Tuesday, April 5th. That's just an audio transmission, no video. You can call in or listen via webcast. I'll channel for about 30 minutes about whatever is relevant at that period of time. So I never know prior to these transmissions, these monthly transmissions, what's going to be talked about. I mean, I know a little bit a day or two before, right? I get bits and pieces, but I certainly don't know a week and a half out. And then we do a lot of Q&A on that call for the next hour. And then I'm going to highlight just a few of what is offered here in my package. So there are 19 recordings follow of 19 different programs and workshops that I did over the course of the last year. I think I was just on your show 1 year ago, John. And we already talked about the solstice transmission and the equinox transmission a bit. So I'm not going to talk too much about them. I want to talk about item 8, self-care magic. It was just a wonderful offering on self-care and boundaries, but what self-care really means, defining that for ourselves, right? Because often when we think self-care, we think, oh, eating better and right, getting massage and exercising. And there's a lot of shoulds and judgments that kind of go along with those things. And that's not at all what this transmission was about. This is about true self-care, accessing what you truly need in the moment, discerning that for yourself, discerning perhaps why you're not able to be in that kind of relationship with yourself, and then how to create healthy boundaries and do some magic and spell work around enforcing those boundaries and proceeding with a higher level of self-care. And sometimes self-care is eating the cookie, right? Or the piece of chocolate, or the thing that you think you're not supposed to if you're doing self-care, right? So it's very, very much about that, which was followed up, interesting, with this transmission shortly after. So I'll go to item 9, knowing the self, where we really dove even more deeply into accessing who we are and who we are becoming, and also who we've been. We've been through, over the course of the last 2 years, we've been through these massive identity shifts. I mean, I certainly can't, I'm sure this is true for you, John. I really can't remember who I was prior to the pandemic. Do you have that experience as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the other day, I had the day off the other day, and I was trying to remember what it felt like to have a day off prior to the pandemic, to just like get in my car and do whatever the hell I wanted without, thinking, without thinking. I couldn't remember that feeling state any longer. And I also couldn't really access yet what it feels like to have a day off on this new timeline, right? Which tells me we're still working this out. We're still shifting into these new identities. So there was a lot of work done during 2021 to support releasing those outdated identities, opening up to sitting in the glitchy, who the fuck am I moment, right? We all found ourselves in, and then starting to identify that which brings us joy, truly what brings us joy, and begins to open up for us. So we really talked about that in that transmission. Okay, I've lost my browser window here. Hold on a second. Okay, I'm going to go back to my browser window now. Okay, let's see. Oh, item 11, calling in your support staff, spells for connection. Yeah, this is a channeling workshop. This is workshop on how to connect with your guides and your fairy guides and your angelic helpers, but support staff in other ways as well. It's really, really fun. And there are a number of different processes given for connection and for clearing fears that may come up, for you around connection with your guides and around channeling. And then Ursula offers a spell for connection in her wonderful way, Ursula the fairy. Oh, and item 12, I'll talk about this one. Yes. And then I'll scroll through quickly and see more of what's on the back end. Working with your ascended ancestors. So this term, ascended ancestors, came in during one of my transmissions prior to this one. And it really resonated for me, ascended ancestors, because to be honest, I don't come from a very happy family. And working with my direct ancestors, right? I would hear that, like, call on your ancestors for help, and I would feel into like all the alcoholism and
Yeah,
abuse and
no.
right. And I'm like, yeah, no thanks. And then I started to access this data on the ascended ancestors, right? And the truth that calling on the ancestors, you're really calling on these beings who are no longer in any way connected to the physical incarnations that they had on planet Earth, and yet they're still connected to you and can work with you and work with your genetics and your patterns of behavior and offer a level of healing and love and support as ascended ancestors that just has a very specific flavor and vibration that no other beings can offer. So I found this extremely helpful for me. And I'll tell you that personally, 2021 was a very hard year for me with my family. I had a lot of things come up. I'm sure a lot of you have had family old traumas activated and losses, right? We all have experienced so many losses over the last couple of years. So this transmission was extremely healing and helpful and soothing for me as I brought it through and then worked with it afterwards. I'm going to item 16, fairy godmothers and a spell for joy. So Jupiter is in Pisces right now, which is this amazing fairy godmother energy that we're experiencing. And so there's a lot of information given about how to work with Jupiter in Pisces and receive, and information on not just calling in the fairy godmothers, but also operating as a fairy godmother as well. And that comes back again in some of my later transmissions, because again, when you open yourself up to unconditional receiving, that also opens you up to unconditional giving. So to get to invite the fairy godmothers in and then be a fairy godmother for another it's so delightful. I was telling John prior to the call today that I had the wonderful experience yesterday of hanging out with a dear friend of mine from high school. So I've known her for over 30 years, and her 7-year-old daughter. And it was her daughter's birthday a couple days ago. So I gifted her with her first tarot deck and also with a deck of fairy divination cards. And she wanted to go through every single card and do readings and talk about it all. And she was so excited and so in the magic and mystery of all of it. And it really reminded me of my beginnings in this work, right? The first time I got a tarot deck and the first time I established contact with the fairies and with my guides. And that's something that my work will offer you is that feeling of wonder and joy, and it'll take you to that place of just the incredible love and energy that is available to us all at all times, no matter what is happening in our third dimensional lives. And it doesn't cancel out what's happening, but it sure helps to navigate through, to have that kind of support and play and fun. Okay.
Something that I
Yeah.
read in here that really stood out for me, and it's so important, y'all. You actually, and maybe it's the fairy godmother module. You're sharing about how to deal with information overload, with receiving too much information as well, and really
Yes.
come to a point of integration.
Yes. Yes. There was a lot of that offered, right? Because so much is happening right now, and how to And also how to make yourself available to that information, right? When you're in the place to look at it, to read about it, to see what is happening on the
Yeah,
world.
we can't avoid it. It's
No,
about being with it, and like it's because we just want to shut down and turn it off. No,
yeah,
that's not where we are in our consciousness right now.
no. And we're all connected. We're all one. So we're all experiencing it on some level. For me personally, it helps me to have the information to know what is happening. And also personally, I know my boundaries. I know when enough is enough and I need to step away from my computer screen and go outside or play with the dogs or go cook some food or whatever, right? So it's about that balance as well. And that again kind of goes back to the self-care magic transmission. There was a lot of help and support in that. Okay, I'm going to talk about one more module here. This is item 18, all planets direct.
Hmm.
Oh, this was a really fun and cool transmission. So all planets are in direct station right now. And they have been, since sometime in February. I can't remember the exact date. And they will be, all planets will be direct through April 29th, which means there will be nothing in retrograde all the way through April 29th. Nothing to slow us down astrologically, right? So this workshop was about how to use that energy of all planets being direct. But then what also came through was this incredible magic in using the planets themselves in our solar system as guides. And specific keywords were assigned to each planet to help you better identify which planet you might need to call upon for whatever it is you're working on in the moment. And of course, that's technology you can use whenever. It's not capped when planets start going retrograde. I think it's Pluto goes retrograde on April 29th. But I found it to be it was a fascinating transmission for me. I am not officially an astrologer. I follow a lot of astrology. I understand a lot of astrology, and I really like to pair the channeling work that I do with astrology because it offers a very grounded interpretation at times of that channeled information. And yeah, this is the mer beings came through in this one. I think they also came through on the winter solstice, and they are always
Wow.
just so expansive in their transmissions. Yeah.
Wow. This is phenomenal. Everybody, this is $97. And you have the one live workshop, the one live call with Nora, and then you've got 19 of these recordings. And again, what's being shared here is just, I feel is so timely with what we're have access to, what we're maturing, all of us into, and to have this awareness and the tools that are shared to be in a vibrational coherent field that supports the grace of how we can step into it. It's just powerful, and I hope you guys take advantage of it. I'm freaking loving this, Nora, and thank you for putting it together.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, John. And thank you to any of you and all of you, first, for being here tonight with us. And second, to any of you who take advantage of the offer. Thank you in advance. Thank you.
Yeah, and so we're going to get into Q&A here in a second. But again, the link for the special offer is in the chat box. Just open up the chat box, scroll all the way to the bottom or towards the bottom. You'll see the blue link. Just click on that and it'll take you straight into it. And you'll start getting you'll get the MP3s almost right away. And again, the live course is coming up what day in April?
Tuesday, April 5th.
April 5th. Fantastic. There's some strong astrology in April also. So this is
fantastic. Right? April 4th, right? Isn't it Mars and Saturn are squaring each other in Aquarius?
Right.
And then on the 29th, Pluto goes retrograde. And then April 30th, we have a solar eclipse.
Right. We start eclipse season.
Yes. Woohoo!
Hang on to your hat. This is powerful. And to prepare for all of that, even, this is fantastic. So again, $97, 2 payment option. It's all freaking Nora and Pleiadians and Yeshua and Nora and Ursula and so many others, the mer beings. It's just, this is so good. Take advantage of it. You know where to find the link now. And Nora, with that, I'd love to open up to Q&A now if you're available for it.
Yeah, excellent.
So, Michelle, I was looking at your question, but I see that you're live here now. So Michelle, let's go to you first.
Hi, Nora. You're such a joy. That's so awesome. So are you, John?
Thank you.
I usually live in a place of joy, especially now in my life. I have had trauma in the past, but I've healed through that. And so what's happened over the last several weeks is being introduced to this space and the offerings. I've had a huge awakening, which has been really cool. Like it's really awesome. But what's happened now, when I learn more about the shift and what's coming, and it feels like I'm playing some kind of disaster stories in my mind, I'm feeling fear about it. And so I know that, I feel vulnerable even saying that, because if I'm so awakened, why am I feeling fear? But I am concerned about that because it's triggered some fear in me, because I'm thinking, what does this look like? When is this happening? When is this big shift going to happen? What's going to happen to my family who are not on a similar path? So I need a horse whisperer. Nora.
Yeah, this is the Pleiadians. Let us jump in here. First, fear. There's nothing wrong with fear. Fear is a feeling that says to you, there's a problem and I need to tend to it, right? So again, this is the story we tell, right? So this may be a little bit different flavor than what you've been taking in, but fear is absolutely something to be paid attention to. It does not mean that you are any less high vibe. If you are feeling your fears, it means you're feeling your fears, which is fantastic, right? Number two, we can see where some of what's coming up for you that is that you're processing are actually past life memories. And your consciousness is not organizing the information in this way. So you're feeling a fear about what looks like a potential future event, when in actuality, you're remembering the fall of Atlantis. Take a breath. Take a breath right now. Yep, drop into your heart. Yeah. All right, we want to address the piece about your family not being on the same page as you. We disagree. All of humanity is shifting as one. That's it. End of story. There are no higher beings going to a higher place and lower unawakened beings staying on the shit planet, right? That's just not, that's from our perspective, that's not what is happening. We don't see any advantage in holding that belief. All that offers is more fragmentation, more fear, more disassociation, more disconnection, right? Yes, take a breath here. They don't have to know anything, right? That you are knowing what you're knowing right now, well, that's fantastic, right? It doesn't really change who you are. It's just you accessing a different version of information. The truth is, every single being on Earth is in the process of the integration of fifth dimensional consciousness and fifth dimensional technologies. Every single one, not just humanoids, also animals, plant life, the planet itself. How this is all going to play out, we don't really know. When that final timeline is, let go of needing to see it in your lifetime. That's another thing we really recommend, right? Put your attention on yourself now and this moment you have found yourself in now, and let yourself celebrate the work. Try not to get caught up in beliefs that take you into alternate realities that don't really yet exist.
I appreciate that. I feel like I have Yeshua in my back pocket, so I feel some safety in that.
That's great. This is Nora. That's, it's interesting. I always recommend calling upon Yeshua in moments of overwhelm or intense fear, right? Yet that Yeshua collective, their only reason for existence is to support humanity on planet Earth.
I feel the suffering of others so much, so that really it affects my heart so much, but
Yeah.
I appreciate so much what you said. That helps me.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Michelle. Much love to you. So I have an interesting question that came in from Bing. He says, so interesting perspective. And he's talking about that we're all in our highest self version at this moment. So he's asking, so does that mean that Putin is now in his highest self?
I love that question. I saw it come in.
Yeah.
This is the Pleiadians here. Well, we would say that, yes, right? This is the highest version of himself that he is able to actualize, right? So you can look at it as from that way as well. It doesn't mean that what he is doing is good, right? Don't confuse the two. It also doesn't mean that the suffering he has initiated is somehow necessary for your evolution and growth. This is a really deeply embedded program we see in the collective psyche of humanity, that suffering is the growth motivator. You look at moments in your history of intense suffering, you look at then what has followed, you look at then what has followed as far as kind of better events unfolding, and you tend to tie the two events together. You say, well, there's more love on the world because of the suffering. No, suffering is not the change agent. Suffering begets more suffering. You all are stuck in a loop of suffering. It is love. It is always love that is the motivation for growth, for healing, for evolution, for expansion. Now, this is one of the things that changed on your world on the winter solstice of 2012. So you had encoded in your blueprints for incarnation that not only did you need to suffer to grow, but that suffering was a good thing. And you all have gotten into the habit of mining the gold from moments of suffering to prove to yourself that it's okay that you suffered. We often see you doing this with childhood abuse, right? Moments of abuse. Well, I am the person I am because I suffered. No, you are who you are in spite of the fact that you suffered. At some point, you chose to love yourself more. And it's not the suffering that opened the door to that love. So when it comes to Putin, he is not operating from joy. He is not operating as his highest self. He is his highest self, but he could be accessing that fifth dimensional consciousness from within that recognizes there is a collective experience happening here. He's not allowing that activation to occur.
Beautiful. Great answer for that. Thank you so much. And Bing, thank you for the question.
Yes, thank you.
All right, let's go now to Jill. Hi, Jill. Welcome. And Jill, let's get you to unmute, please.
There we go.
Hi, Jill.
Hi, Nora. What a pleasure it is. And thank you so much. I'm so glad that myself said, you want to come on today. So here I am.
Yay.
I want to go back to what is happening in the Ukraine because I know how deeply it affects me. And I know energetically I can feel it just swirling around in me, and that there's connections back to World War II that I directly can feel.
Yes.
And I also know that I'm in my 70s, so I've gone through, whatever has happened since World War II, but I've never been as deeply connected or affected by anything as this unfolding through the Ukraine. So if there's more information you can tell me about that, or what is important for me to really move with it with.
Yes. First, let me say, Jill, I love that you already drew this conclusion for yourself to World War II. That actually just came through in my spring equinox transmission, a whole bunch of information about the not just the memories, but literal bleed throughs happening right now.
Yeah.
Yes, this is the Pleiadians here, Jill. So you are experiencing a bleed through from a version of you that existed during World War II. Just take a breath here, right? So it's why it's not just an event that is happening there in Europe. It feels like you're in it yourself, because there is a you from that lifetime that watched in horror as Hitler and the Nazis took over. You lived in Poland. You were Jewish. You did not have the means to get out of the country. So there's also something very triggering for you right now when you look at the people who are trapped in Ukraine. That specifically is a trauma point for you, because you felt trapped there in Poland. You were you and your family was put in the Warsaw Ghetto, and you were male in that lifetime, so you felt responsible then, even more so, for your wife, your children. And then at some point you were involved in some altercation with the SS and the Nazis, and you were shot in the head and executed. And then what happened for you is you did not transition in a smooth way after that murder, because you did not want to leave your family. So when the events in Ukraine began, when Putin invaded, that past life you that's kind of been hanging in the astral field, let's say, attached itself to your body. So this is also why you have the overwhelm, because it's not really Jill that's running your body through this experience. It is this past life version of you. So we want you to just close your eyes, take a breath right now, and just tune into him, this you from this other life, just sitting in your body, weeping and enraged, both. And as you're breathing and connecting with this you, send him a huge transmission of unconditional love. So inhale some golden light into your crown and your heart. And as you exhale, flush your system with golden light. And you're going to feel him pop out of your field. And he's looking around at your space saying, oh, okay, this is not where I'm supposed to be. And he wants to thank you for helping him. And remember, this is another you, right? So this is just you being bothered by another you from another timeline. And as you breathe now, the Archangel Michael is going to come in and escort him onward, the thing he would not do. And you just take a breath and shake your hands out now. And you've just opened up some space in your body and your field. So what's going to happen moving forward is you're still going to feel affected by Ukraine, and that's absolutely healthy, but not as overwhelmed by it. And if you do start to feel overwhelmed, what you can say to yourself then is, this is just a memory. This is just a memory. Thank you, Jill.
Beautiful,
Thank
Jill.
you,
Thank you so
Nora.
much.
Thank you, John.
Beautiful. Nora, I want to address a comment that came in and then get your perspective on it. And I want to share mine because I have a strong opinion about it. But me wrote something that was a very strong judgment about Putin, and that it's still all unfolding, that we don't know yet. And from my perspective, and may I want you to feel into this as your truth, anywhere where someone is causing harm to others intentionally, that for me is not of the highest vibrational tone. That for me is something that we are transcending. If you were to cause harm to others, what would you judge within yourself? You have that awareness already within you. To amplify someone else to a place that it's okay for them to do it in the name of the light or name of consciousness is really contraindicative to the judgment that you hold within yourself and with others directly associated with you. So I would ask anybody who has a version of that hierarchy of who has authority to do that and who doesn't, to really look at themselves and to allow your critical mind to go beyond the surface level emotional response that you're getting because of so much stimulation, and dig deeper into your truth and really to hone into your love, because that's where the real answer lies. So is it judgmental that someone who is in essence committing genocide, playing something out that's a higher perspective or awakening? For me, I have to tell you no.
Oh,
And
even if it is judgmental, I don't really see a problem with having a judgment about it,
yeah,
right?
that's true. Yeah,
Yeah, it's wrong. This is the Pleiadians. We'll jump
yeah,
in, but Nora might jump in as well,
yeah.
right? Distortions of fear manifesting as hate are things that you incarnated to clear, to heal, not to promote.
Mhm.
And that is what Putin is doing. He is running distortions of fear manifesting as hate, just as so many before him have done. The racists, the misogynists, the transphobes, the homophobes, on and on. We understand there's a lot of information about non-duality out there, and you are trying to apply non-duality right now. You're trying to say it's all good because it's all serving some higher purpose. All that is you saying suffering is good, and suffering supports more suffering. That's all it supports, right? So we're trying to shake you all out of this a bit because it's become really ingrained. It's the same as saying in Christianity, God has a plan, right? How's that any different? So again, it's the evangelical, Christian, Catholic, Jewish, Muslim, on and on, right? These religious beliefs that have found their way into the New Age, ascension, healing, alternative communities that are just being repackaged, but it's the same energy, right? And where does that leave you all then as humans? If you say, Putin is love incarnate, so what he's doing is fine, that disables you, that disempowers you. That leaves you more open to attack yourself, because what you're saying is, I'm not going to use a piece of my technology, which is my discernment and my judgment, to see a hate monger as a hate monger, right? If this goes back to the fear piece, like what Michelle was asking about, right? You got to get in your bodies and feel it. It's like saying Hitler in any way was good, or Trump, right? And there's no good in any of that.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I love that this came up, and I thank you so. Tell me the name of the person who asked this question.
Me or my? I'm not sure how to pronounce it. So I
Thank you
apologize,
so
my
much
or
for
yeah.
thank you so much for asking. I will say personally, right? And this is one of the things that's really shifted for me over the course of the pandemic. I tried so fucking hard to apply non-judgment and the real principles of non-duality, right? I tried really hard with Trump. He was like my I can't remember the term for it, but he was it, right? And no, right? If he's a racist, misogynistic, hate mongering asshole, whoever he is, right? That's who he is. Putin is showing his cards, right? That's it. There's no judgment in that. That's truth telling.
It really is. It's right there. That's so interesting. Again, me, thank you so much for writing that in.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. And thank you, John, for being a sane voice from my perspective on this as well. Thank you.
Yeah. I had to speak. It's like, it's perpetuating hate over perpetuating love. It doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
It just doesn't.
Right.
All right, let's go to our next caller. Alex, I'm getting a call on you from the car. Hello, Alex.
Hi.
Hi, Alex.
Hi, how are you? Thank
Good.
you, John and Nora. Blessings to you both for your incredible work. I've just got a really quick question on, I get really confused on how to balance living in, acceptance and accepting where I am or what's happening and living in mediocrity. So I've been working, for example, on my marriage for many years, and I've turned it into working on myself and ignoring the marriage and using it as a place of learning. But I still can't kind of accept that I'll end this lifetime with a mediocre relationship.
All right, this is the Pleiadians here, Alex. It's a great question, what you're asking, right? And this is an area where we can really talk about judgment, right? Your judgment of the experience is that it's mediocre, and that's okay for you for now. It really is for now. If it ever gets to a moment when your judgment is that it's terrible, then you'll leave.
Mm.
If you ever get to a moment where your judgment of it is that it's fantastic, see how judgment works? Well,
Sure.
then you will have created something else with him. We love, though, that you have taken your attention off of trying to shift the dynamic between the two of you and put your attention squarely upon yourself. Our recommendation to you is to continue to really work with that self-love technology and the enforcement of your boundaries. There's something else I could feel as you were talking here. Some kind of comparative analysis that you're running, Alex, between your experience with your husband and what you perceive to be, what you think like a successful marriage should be. Anywhere you're doing that, stop doing that, right? Because that's just really, making you crazier around it. Does that make sense to you?
Yes. Yeah. I'll think about it, but yeah.
This is the Pleiadians here. We want to be clear. The path is not, as I love myself more, I will then raise my vibration and pull to me someone who is higher vibrational, right? That's not it. It's as I love myself more, this experience will either become fantastic or terrible, and I will know what to do.
Mm.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Nora, I want to ask you, so from the perspective of operating from joy from the little j compared to the highest j, how does this relate?
All right, this is the Pleiadians. We'll jump in on this. Right. So this is about faking it, right? Don't fake joy within the context of it. In fact, if you need to have a fight, an argument, a conflict, whatever, have at it for yourself personally, Alex, for yourself personally. Then go in, activate that vibration of joy and do something for you that is joyful. That puts more joy in the field. Then if he wants to pick up on that and play with that vibration, he can.
Yeah. Okay, I get that.
I was watching a movie yesterday, and it was about someone in theater, and she was a playwright, and she was asking another playwright, like, when does it happen? When am I going to be successful? Right. And the playwright said to her, you're doing it. You're teaching, you're directing, you're in it, right? You're in it, Alex.
Yeah.
Like, let go of that. I think we all have this, right? We all have this attachment to winning, some moment of winning, whether we've won in our marriage or our careers or whatever, right?
Sure.
We're in it already. The thing we wanted, we're in it, and we're evolving and healing. And this is Ursula for you, Alex. We really felt like we needed to come in here, the fairies, because, well, you need to invite us to move in with you, right? So we're going to suggest that to all of you. If you have not yet done this, please give a formal invitation to us, meaning just stand at your front door and invite us into your space and allow us to help you all activate, access, use the vibration of joy on a more regular basis. Although we sound playful and kind of fun and flighty, the truth is we are fifth dimensional beings. We are closer in vibration to you than any other being in this universe. Take a breath here. We are your direct ascension guides, the fairies. Do not ever fool yourselves into thinking we are any less powerful than the archangels or the Pleiadians or anyone else, because for you all right now, working directly with us. And when we say the fairies, like John was saying with the capital J, it's capital T, capital F, and it's a huge umbrella that encompasses the gnomes, the elves, the pixies, the brownies, the dragons, the unicorns, those beings you might define as fairy, those individuated forms, and on and on. We are a huge collective of beings here, both collaborating with and in service to you. Invite us into your homes and allow us to support your creative endeavors.
Mm, mm, mm.
Wow.
Yeah, everybody after this call, go out to your front door, open it up, go invite the fairies in, and into dream time, into playtime, into dancing, into cooking, into showering, into just
Yes.
like,
Yes. And expect then for things to be a little wonky in your house for a couple weeks, because the fairies will alter the
we'll rearrange the
vibration.
furniture.
Your keys will go missing for hours, and then, oh, there they are. And that thing you didn't do that you really needed to do, well, you did, between losing the keys and finding the keys. Yes.
Oh my God, so beautiful. Alex, thank you so much, and blessings to
Thank
you.
you.
I
Amazing.
wanna-
Thank you.
Alex, one thing I want to offer to you also, and it could be silly, just without attachment, just in loving energy to your husband. It doesn't have to be physically or outcome, but just in every breath, even in confusion, is just love. And thank you for the present moment, for the
Yeah.
gift of what the present moment is, because it's all shaking and stirring something where you're getting to know yourself at
Yeah.
such
Thank you.
an intimate place. So your love
Yeah,
is
that's
over
good.
there, that we want to segregate it for boundaries or for clarity and all that, but tap into the power of your love. And rather than seeing as taking something away from you when you give it so generously, allow it to be a place where it settles your nervous system, because part of the confusion is that you feel like you have to take your love away in judgment, rather than give it in ways that don't come with the expectations of who you're supposed to be.
I love that, John. That's so
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, so big invitation, Alex, and
Okay.
blessings to you.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Nora,
Thank you.
it's maybe from your perspective, Nora, I don't know, but I feel like I want to cap off the call with an awareness that's been streaming through you, whether it's a message from the Pleiadians, from Jeshua or whatever, but it's what you feel has been evoking through you personally as we're transitioning, from these planets that are all been going in forward movements and stepping into the beginning of an eclipse season, and the planets starting to do their separate dances.
Yes, this is the Pleiadians here. We'll take this one, although really it's not just the Pleiadians. You should know that, right? Because Nora works with so many different beings. We're all of us contributing. So although Yeshua didn't individuate himself, that presence has been coming through and streaming through, as have the fairies and all the other beings that come through Nora at different times. So what's challenging for you all right now, while in this wonderful moment of all planets being direct, with so many big things happening on your world, the pandemic is still happening. It's still happening, right? Take a breath, everyone, and just know that's true. It doesn't have to cancel out your high vibe energy, right? But it is still happening, as is what's happening there in Ukraine and the other events that will unfold. You're moving into a place now where it's going to feel more regular for a period of time, that these bigger world events are ongoing, while you yourself kind of move forward into the initiation of who it is you are now, who it is you desire to be, and how you wish to express your value in the world. So first, who you are is that you are love incarnate. You are source energy, right? This is the truth of your identity. It's the truth of the identity of all consciousness in this universe. And why you came to this world this time was to be here. Mission accomplished. So for any one of you who think you are supposed to get to some level of consciousness so you can then actualize and do what it is you came here to do, you're already doing what you came here to do. You're here. Now, of course, that's not enough for the ego. The ego wants to do things, and that's appropriate, right? So then that is how you put your presence in action. But your value is not determined by your product, what you produce. Your value is determined by the truth that you are source energy. You are love incarnate. You have infinite value and worth. And then what you do becomes an expression of your value. So as these planets have lined up in direct motion, and as you're becoming a bit more active right now on your world, ask yourself on a more regular basis, is this action an expression of my value, my love? Or is this me adhering to something I think I'm supposed to do based on some outdated program I'm still running, right? And then you can clear that or heal it, or even just observe yourself in it, because you're still going to do that, right? You're still going to do plenty that feels outdated or obligatory. And part of being human is there are obligations that you have to adhere to. This is what being an individual within the container of the collective means. There are certain things you have to do as individuals because you're a part of this collective, and you can't get around it. You can't get outside of it, and you're not supposed to. You're supposed to bring your joy to it, your love, your heart, which then puts more joy in the field and makes it all easier and more joyful for all. You know, this is Nora here. What I find happening as a direct result of the activation of joy in my second chakra is the ability for me to be more effortlessly creative and express my creative energy, and then also my creator energy in more direct ways. So I offer that as well as you ask this question, John. Activate that vibration of joy in your second chakras, and then allow for your creative energy to pour forth. And remember, it is an expression of your value. It is not the thing that you're going to use to prove that you have value, because you are already valuable.
Oh my goodness. Can y'all feel that? I mean, really, just allow yourself just to feel that it's just circulating. And it's truth. It's just truth. This is so powerful. Y'all, the replay is going to go a little bit later. Come back and listen again. And of course, go deeper with Nora's special offers. Oh my God, this is so good. Y'all can feel it, right? You have to. And if you can't, there's more opening. It's just, God, just be in resonance what the inner calling is. And it's just, if you're in resonance with the special offer, again, go deeper and open up and have this facilitation of consciousness as it resonates for you. Apply towards the expansion and help you with the consciousness of what you're stepping into. It's fantastic. Again, the link for the special offer is in the chat box. It's $97, 2 payment option, 1 live call, 19 recordings. Nora Herold, just through and through with her entourage of guides. And
John, you know, you my husband, John, you get a lot of fun banter with him and I. You know, John is a Reiki master and also channels, and is the often engine and generator behind a lot of our work. And although I'm the front person, right, it is always a collaboration between him and I. Yeah, I didn't talk about the yin and yang work we did during this equinox transmission that just happened last Thursday. That was a week ago. I think that yin and yang balancing work that was offered during that event is some of the most loving and lovely information I have felt come through me. So I just wanted to throw that out there as well, because we're really having this conversation right now about gender and the masculine energy and the feminine energy, right? It's very challenging and convoluted for people to understand it, and they broke it down in very simplistic ways that takes it completely out of any gender identifications and really puts it into the yin and the yang and using those principles. So yes, I just wanted to throw that in there too.
Oh, that sounds amazing. I want to participate in that. Definitely. Oh, so good. Everybody, thank you so much for being on
Thank
here.
you.
It's been such great energy. Nora, you freaking rock. Thank you as always. It's so wonderful. And thank you for the shifts that I got to receive from this call as well. What a gift. What a gift. I love you. I love you all. I look forward to seeing you on the next call. Good night.